Now, Alex Lovell, I'm not going to deny I am slightly nervous about this because I have seen you interview a prime minister live on air. And I watched in awe with our lovely colleague Bob Cruz. So to now be interviewing you, I feel a little bit nervous, but thank you so much for coming on the next chapter. Welcome to the next chapter.
Well, I feel nervous because you're not used to, you know what it's like, you're not used to talking about yourself, although my friends and family would be like, yeah, right.
Oh, I don't believe that. But you, anyway. Well, look, we're going to go. We have a lot to discuss, so we're just going to crack on. And I'm going to just say no special treatment, Alex, even though, I like you very much and we work side by side. This time, you're not going to escape anything. So
Fine. Hit me.
we begin as ever with the prologue. Now, am I right in saying that you were actually born in Gravesend, but you grew up in Harrogate?
Yes. So born in Gravesend in Kent. So I'm a Kentish maid. That's what you're called if you're born on that side of Kent. And then when I was I don't remember much about Kent. I've got a much older brother and sister, so they do more than I do. But yeah, my dad got a job in Harrogate, which is so beautiful up in Yorkshire. So I grew up in leafy Harrogate, which if you've never been there, is very similar to Bath or Cheltenham. It's a spa town, that kind of, beautiful yellowing stone, Betty's Cafe, that kind of thing. It's very cute. It's
Gorgeous.
lovely.
And what did your dad do?
Dad originally trained in law, and then he went into local government. So he was chief executive of Harrogate County Council and Council.
Wow, wow. And is that why he got is that so was he in law when he went up to Harrogate?
No, that was when he was in local government.
That was
So
it.
yeah, he got that job and we went up. So
Wow. And
yeah.
did your mum work?
Mum was mum, but she before she had all the kids, she was a dressmaker. So she used to do piecework, is what they called it, where they would literally make their piece and somebody else would make the next piece, and it would all come together. And she kept that going through us growing up. So she could make our clothes, or my first like going to a ball when I was 17, she'd make that. So she was a wonderful dressmaker. She still takes things up for me and send them up to her. But she was also a yoga teacher, but she didn't have a mum in her life. So mum died when she was very young. So she always wanted to be a mum for the three kids, and an amazing mum she was too.
Yeah, and you go on holiday with her and you have a lovely time. You can see as well because you love your clothes and all you're very sort of artistic in that. So well, we'll come on to that. So you can see that. And so you say you have you've got an older brother and sister, so you're the youngest.
Yeah.
And so at school, what were you like at school?
Um, I mean, I'm just always a very happy kid. I talked a bit too much. It was always on my report card, talks too much. I love now that I'm getting paid to talk. So that's like, it worked out in the end. One year, my mum and dad went out to, the parents' evening, and they said, I really hope they're not going to say you're talking too much. And they came home and I'm on the stairs like, oh God, what are they going to say? And they said, no, apparently you're not talking too much anymore.
But there you go.
I was singing. Yeah, the singing. So yeah, I was always verbose.
Wow. I mean, I'm not going to say it comes as a surprise. It doesn't really come as a surprise, if I'm totally honest. And the singing, so was this the start of you, obviously, with a great love of acting? Is this how it all began?
No, I think I was just always just wanting to entertain. I was a bit of a class clown, or just always wanting to, I don't know, just always be in everything. I was musical at school. I was always like in the music block. I was one of those kids. But actually, in terms of musicality, although I can play instruments and I think I can sing, Seb regularly begs me not to sing on set and says you've got a warbly voice. And I'm not actually a very a good singer or anything. It was really going to drama school was all about the acting.
Well, I'm going to have words with that, Seb, though. And when I present with you, I think this week, I'm going to ask if you'll sing because I haven't heard the singing. So we'll move aside,
Well, the
Mr. Seb
gallery will be
Chowdhury.
chuffed, won't they? The
Yeah.
director will be like, nah.
Off she goes. Let's get in early for a sing-song from Alex, I say. I mean, so what you did when you left school was you went to drama school. So when you were still at school, were you taking part in plays and things were you getting into that then?
I was. So a lot of my friends, we were all doing musicals and things like that. But because it was always musicals, I never got a very good part. Um, and actually, away from that, I moved into a girl who was the same age as me, and she was also called Alex, when we moved house. And she went to a private teacher up the road, who was an acting teacher. And I was like, oh, yes, I really want to do that. So nearly all the acting I was doing was away from everyone else, out of school, going to the festivals, doing the drama pieces, a monologue, the poems, sight reading, all the things that you would have to do to get your little Lambda certificates and all the rest of it. And each year I was getting better and better, and then winning the group thing or winning overall, and had these trophies. And I was like, I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. But I didn't ever think that it could be a job. You can't actually do that as a job. So I didn't entertain it. I thought, no, I've got to go to university like everyone else is doing.
Right. And so at school, was there a particular subject that you liked? Did you have any idea what you'd like to do if you didn't realize you could do that as a job?
I loved English. I loved English language, picking apart, reasoning, understanding poetry, things like that, and history. But it was completely separate, all the acting. So there's acting groups I'm doing with my friends, but I'm like second munchkin on the left. But everything I was doing that was the real acting, that was completely my little world outside of school, outside of my school friends. That was just this little thing that was growing inside me, away from all school. I never did drama at school or anything like that.
Isn't that lovely though? Because that's such a lovely thing, isn't it? Because these days, and I see it with eyeballs, it's very much, and it's very on show, a lot of what everyone does, isn't it? You kind of know about it. You don't often have pride, they share, we all share such a lot. I think that's such a lovely thing that you had that, because if you were a bit, it wouldn't have taken much at that age. It can be put you off, and you were there and you were just building it. It was your own thing. It was a great foundation.
I mean, I wonder nowadays it would be different. Maybe, I'd feel compelled to share as we share nowadays, but it wasn't a world like that then, was it?
No.
So I was just there doing my little exams and getting my little trophies.
Yeah. So when you applied to go to drama school, obviously your mum and dad, was it just something that was like, yeah, why not? I perhaps could do this?
Well, no, I'm sitting with the careers advisor and they said, so, what are you going to do? And I was like, I think I'll go and do English at university. What universities would you like to go to? I'd like to apply to this one and this one. And then I said, I'd really like to go to drama school. And they didn't close it down.
Wow, that's great.
I threw it out there, but never thought it would happen. They said, okay, you've missed the date for most of them. But there are a couple of big ones in London that are still auditioning. And I already you had to do pieces, like a 3-minute classic and modern piece. So you'd go with your Shakespeare piece or whatever, and then you go with a modern piece from some modern play. And I had those because that's what I'd been doing in these festivals. So suddenly I'm actually applying to go to these drama schools.
Wow.
And she didn't seem to gulp at the idea. Then all ideas of university went straight out the window. It's like, no, that is absolutely what I should be doing. I have no doubt at all.
That's incredible, isn't it? And also, because so often on this podcast, the careers, they do get a bit of a bad rap. Back in the day as well, because it was always like, would be a teacher or be an accountant or something like that. Not that those jobs aren't great. I'm not saying that. But the fact that, I mean, can you imagine if that advisor had shut it down? It could have it's these tiny conversations that you would have never known were so important at the time, but yet there it was. It just opened up, and that's the importance of this. Is like what we try and do here, of the importance of seeing it is possible. Why isn't that amazing? Well, why not? Why not?
Yeah, and who'd have thought it? It was such an absolute fit. It was like two pieces that are meant to be together, just going clunk.
Yeah,
and it made utter sense. I'm 18, I'm in leafy Harrogate, and I'm about to go to London. And yet there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that was utterly the right thing to do. There's no other option in life whatsoever. So it fitted that much.
Yeah.
And I am so lucky because I know so many young people and not young people who still don't know what they want to do. In the words of the great Baz Luhrmann song, everyone's free to wear sunscreen. I love that, and return to it often if you haven't listened to it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is brilliant.
Yeah, don't worry if you don't know what you want to do with your life. Some of the most talented 40-year-olds still don't know what they, so it's so true. And I was uber lucky that I did know.
But also, you say that, Alex, but you were very brave because you listened. Like you just said there, nothing, it was the only thing. You were listening to yourself, and you were listening, you were being true to yourself, not getting caught up in the everyone else, the world outside. And I think that's very brave, especially at 18.
Thank you.
18.
I look back on 18-year-old me and think, that was quite cool, actually, going to London. I mean, I'm living, the drama school that I went to had two sites. One was a leafy, beautiful country house in Sidcup in Kent, on the outskirts of London, but very, kind of the commuter belt, but very, safe. And the other was Deptford, just near New Cross, London, an old boys' school, spit and sawdust, real grit. And everybody, after we originally, floated around in the big, beautiful house that was listed, everybody wanted to be in this place in Deptford because it was gritty and real. And the drama school I went to wasn't about floating around. I want to be a tree. If it wasn't that, it was, if you're going to be a tree, be a tree. If you're going to be upset, don't act. It was anti-acting. It was, if you're going to be upset, you find that sadness in your life and you connect to it and you keep it real. If you weren't real, you would have the flipping script thrown at you, say, get out of my rehearsal room. That's not real. You're faking it. There's another word for it. It's very rude, which I won't say. But that was completely what it was. Hardcore, real, gritty acting.
Oh, I love that. And actually, that's the opposite to what you would imagine, because acting you think is acting, and that's actually being. And what was it? Did you say? Is it Rosebud? What was the name of the
Rose Bruford.
Okay.
Probably the best known alumni of Rose Bruford is Gary Oldman.
Wow.
He's one I'm so proud that he went there.
Yeah.
He is a god in my eyes in the world of acting.
Yeah.
Just superb, and that real, gritty believability, not just I'm so sad. You would be thrown out of a rehearsal room for that.
Oh, I love that. And so when you went down, so obviously you went for an audition and you got in. I mean, that's just brilliant, isn't it? That's just so incredible, Alex, because it was so hard to get in as well.
Yeah, well, also they had a lot of drama schools don't take people straight from school because you've got no life experience. So especially if they're going to be, this kind of drama school that's a lot of the tutors came from a place called Drama Centre, which was also very this kind of raw, pulling you apart, not pulling you apart, but really finding the inner actor in you, the inner truth. And so a lot of 18-year-olds might not have that much to draw on. I mean, one day in the first year, you were challenged to play parts that were a million miles away from what you'd ever be cast as. So going forward, as a young girl, I would have been cast as the coquette in a period drama, or the girlfriend, or something like that. I was cast as Olga Alexievna, like 70-year-old Russian woman with lots of children. I was cast as a prostitute.
Wow.
I was cast as a man. I was cast as Duke Orsino in Twelfth Night, a bloke. So, they would really challenge you to find your truth and not just play to your reality.
Oh, I love that. And that's so good. And did you enjoy it? How did you find it being surrounded then by other actors as well?
Oh, I loved it. It was amazing, but it was hard. Sometimes you just naturally find a character. It's like, I suppose, when you're writing a book, or when you're creating a report for the news, some things just click into place, and some things you come at them from every angle and it's just not clicking. So they would be, they taught you a lot of method acting. So, like, for example, Stanislavski is a famous name in the acting world in terms of method, literally breaking down not just your script, but breaking down the purpose of your character and then the super purpose. It's really interesting. You and I, for example, in this moment, I will have a purpose, and it is to probably try and entertain you, or to make you interested, for me to be interesting. But my character, or me as a person, would have a super purpose. Would the super purpose be to be loved? Could a character's super purpose to be vengeful? And so actually you go back to that utter grounding of a character and tear it apart until you can build it back up again, if it doesn't come naturally. So,
But also a great life lesson. It's
yeah,
great, that life lesson, like being, because we're being all those different things. We are all those different things. Wow, that's
yeah,
amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. And so you love that. So you saw all these different sides. Were your mum and dad? I imagine they were. Were they very supportive? You know, they were very happy for you to carry on with the acting side of life.
Yeah, they were brilliantly supportive. There was no point that I saw that they went, oh, God, acting.
Yeah.
Also, my sister had moved to London 10 years before me. She's 10 years older. My brother's 12 years older. So she was in London, and established there. So at least I also had that.
Yeah.
So she was never very far away. We weren't that near, but we were never far.
Yeah.
So that probably helped them just let go a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
But I stayed in touch with them all the time. And I think I mean, when you go to drama school, I imagine they had a lot of fears. You know, the reputation of, you know, getting into the acting world, they probably thought, oh, dear God, what's going to happen? You know, but I think, you know, I grew up pretty level-headed.
Yeah.
So I guess they just trusted me.
Yeah, and that's all you can do as parents. And what
Yeah.
did just as because we will move on. What did your sister do? What was she doing in London?
Well, she was a photographer, and she was working for the Met as a forensic photographer.
Wow.
How
Flipping
cool is
heck.
that?
That is cool. And what did your brother do?
But then
What did your brother do? I'm just
he was
curious.
in the police as well, actually. He was in North Yorkshire Police, a detective inspector eventually.
Wow.
So, yeah. But
Wow.
Jackie was civilian, but that's my sister, civilian, but Met forensics. I remember one day I moved into a flat in New Cross, and I told her that I said, I've got a new flat, I'm moving in. And she's like, what number on that road? I'm like, what do you mean, what number? And she'd just been to a scene that was on that road I was moving into. But we established that I was right at the beginning of the road and this scene was right at the other end of
So
the
you
road.
still moved in though?
Pardon?
You still moved in though?
Yeah, it was nice, yeah, actually.
You would have made it nice, Alex. You'd have made it nice. So then you left drama school, and but you basically am I right in saying that you were obviously getting acting jobs? You worked like on stage first of all, but were you working in pubs as well? Basically, that was how you were supporting yourself. I mean, that's incredible. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I was living near Crystal Palace at the time. So I'd work in one pub during the day and another pub on Friday, Saturday, Sunday night on the old Kent Road in
Wow.
Bermondsey. And it was a proper Irish pub, not one of these modern ones, proper. They were so protective of me. And they're always going, Alex, we're having a lock-in. Excuse my accent.
Yeah.
Will you stay? And I'm like, oh, I go home.
And did you used to stay?
They'd always get me to stay. Yeah. So,
wow.
and that's hard work, you know, working in a pub, but you had to, because I
Yeah.
had to keep this dream alive. And it's funny because I'm quite sensitive really to criticism. Like I can really ruminate if somebody's written in and said, oh, I don't like you, you know, which fortunately doesn't happen too often, but if it does, it'll get me down that they felt compelled to do that. And yet as an actor, you're going for auditions, you're being binned off. And it was weirdly like water off a duck's back. I don't know how that happened. I'd love to bottle some of that.
Is that because it's not you directly? Do you think and that school, obviously, I would imagine gave you great, if they were tough on you, you got a resilience there. And I suppose, is it that you're going actually, essentially, if you're going for a part, that part is different to as in a TV presenter. It's actually personal. They're talking about you. Is that that? Would it be that? I don't know.
No, I think you just get used to it. It's just being rejected, going reject, going reject, and just constantly thinking of the next thing. I think you just get used to it, because it does feel personal. I so could have made that part, but then you're on to the next one, obsessing about that. And
Yeah.
you know, my agent always said, try and turn up right for the part. So you know, you turn up looking like, I don't know, somebody out of the early part of the century, but in a modern way, so it's not too obvious.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And help with your mum with all the costumes and amazing. So you were doing this, and you're working in the pub. This was carrying on, and so were you doing mainly stage work at this stage?
Yeah, completely. So I did Blood Brothers.
Yeah, in
I
Birmingham.
played Linda in Blood Brothers. I then got cast in a kids show that toured around the country. It's called Play Days. It was a BBC show with puppets. And it was the tour version of that. And I was on that for a couple of years, actually. So touring around the country, living out of a suitcase. And it's just, again, it's, you know, I was young, I had loads of energy. And it's just, these are the things that give you that grounding. 2 shows every day, 3 shows on a Saturday. And I remember, I think this is where that kind of always giving it 100% came from, because I always thought, you know, the kids that are coming in, 3rd show, you are absolutely on your, but you've still got to give it full beans and never say that'll do. So, and I think that's where that kind of work ethic really became ingrained.
Yes, yes, yes. Which still is today, which we'll come on to talk about. And so, by this stage, then, when you were doing that, you didn't have to work in the pub then? Were you being paid for that?
Yeah, I started actually getting properly paid.
That's amazing. That's such
So
a
yeah,
big
so
deal.
life was good. So I still
life
had
was
a flat in London,
wow.
and you know, but still moving around, going around the country, and it was really nice.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, but I'm sorry now then to bring up something very sad, but I feel like we should mention it while we're in this part of your life, because in this you had your lovely best friend and she died. So that was really traumatic.
Yeah, I think as the teacher said when I was at drama school, you know, what do you know of adversity in your life? You know, there was nothing to dig deep on, and I didn't. I had a wonderful upbringing with a glorious, gorgeous family and lovely friends. I've always been, you know, and I know and never take for granted how utterly incredible my life was. And my very best friend, Claire, we were born on the same day and everything, although we didn't get really close until we were about 11, 12. But then we were inseparable. There was no Claire without Alex and vice versa. And then one day, I just got a phone call from her fiance saying, have you heard? I was like, what? And he said, we were in a car accident last night and she's dead.
Oh my God.
She's dead. And for me, that was one of the biggest moments in my life, because it made no sense.
Yeah.
What? How can she? No. What? That just utterly incomprehensible. I could not get my head around it. And I completely grieved epically, you know, with that kind of that crying, which sounds almost like an animal. It just hurt so much, because I'd never known anybody. My granny had died, and that was very sad. You know, it had pets die, and that was very sad. But this was out of order. This was just didn't make any sense that someone's just gone
And
out of nowhere.
And how were you 21?
Yeah, we were both 21. Yeah.
Oh, Alex, that's awful. I'm so sorry. That is really, and also imagine something like that. That just does then change life, because, like you say, if you experience grief with a grandparent, and that is not to take away how sad it is.
Oh.
And even but to have it. And even I know, and we'll talk about it obviously later on. You lost your dad, and then your lovely dad. I know, so I lost my lovely dad. You know, you do, but to lose a friend that age, that is not what is supposed to happen. It just, and also, so there was no warning.
No,
there was just no. It wasn't like she was poorly. Not that would have made it any easier. But so I suppose that gave you then a feeling of does it? I mean, don't let me put words into your mouth, but of how fragile life is as well.
Oh, completely. Yeah, definitely. And also the way that things fitted together. It was back in the days when it wasn't law to have a seatbelt on. So she was in the back of the car and went out the back window. The three other people who were in that car, one had a scratch on their hand. You know, she was killed and the others were barely even injured, although obviously traumatically, very, emotionally injured. Which is just so odd. And she also never got in a car without a seatbelt. If there wasn't one, she'd sit in the front, and this day she didn't. So it was all just, it was so odd and so much that I couldn't make sense of it, that it made me, yes, feel like life was very fragile. God forbid anybody ever got in my car and didn't wear their seatbelt. I mean, we're just not going anywhere. And that remains to this day.
Yeah, quite right.
We're not going anywhere. So
Yeah.
buckle up. But also, I think it made me understand grief from the point of, it was my best friend. I know, there are different levels of grief, but grief is grief. And I learned a lot very early about grief. For example, grief comes with, I always say grief's best friend is guilt. Most of the time, if we lose somebody in circumstances where we love each other, there's still guilt. Should I have done this? Should have visited them more? Didn't do that, God forbid when there's a circumstance where somebody loses someone after an argument, or they've not been close for a while, or there are unresolved things, because that's a whole nother heap of hell that goes on top of grief. And then, the confusion. Sometimes grief comes like it's competitive. Who's grieving the most? I had that. I experienced some of that. It was like, that's weird. There's just no right or wrong to how you grieve. I don't think we allow ourselves that. It feels like you've got to fit into, well, there's a week off, get yourself together, and then you come back, and it's like grief obviously doesn't work like that.
No, and I would imagine there's a part of you that is still grieving to this day. It doesn't ever, that sort of thing doesn't go away. And it also, but also how great that you've looked at it like that, because it gives you empathy as well, which is a gift, which you have lots of.
Gift, yeah.
It is a gift.
I often think, what would she be doing now? Or a song that we used to put on our headphones and then play music so loud that we couldn't hear ourselves singing, and then we get our little tape recorder and record just the sound of us singing completely out of tune, because we would wet ourselves laughing. We thought that was the funniest thing ever. And I've still got those tapes. So when those songs come on, there's a little, all right, Claire, I just love that.
Yeah, I love that as well. So this all carried on. And then gradually you moved from acting towards the presenting more, wasn't it? And now was that a bit, I mean, I never realised, because you were in The Bill, you're in Love Soup, you've done most of it. I do apologise, Alex, because I never quite realised how much you had done. And obviously, I mean, I knew of you when you were doing Brain Teaser.
Yes.
So did it sort of slowly go from acting, so children's acting, it was children's presenting, and that moved into more like game show presenting?
Yeah, kind of. I was doing this kids show on tour, and I heard that the producer was going to do a show on GMTV called Fun Song Factory. And I knew that this lovely girl called Katie had probably got the job, but I thought, well, I'll go for it. So I just said to Ian, can I just have a go? And I went along, and I was so relaxed because I didn't think I was going to get it. My agent always said that you'll get the jobs because you're not trying too hard. When you're a bit more relaxed and you don't think you're going to get it, I was totally chilled. I was having a right laugh. Guy Dave Benson Phillips was the other presenter. We got on really well. It's the first time I'd seen myself on a monitor, and I'm like this, oh my God, because it puts 10 pounds on you. So, I was just so chilled. So in the end, although this other girl, Katie, did get the job, GMTV said they wanted me as well. So suddenly I'm sharing the job. Did that, and then Dave Benson Phillips recommended me to Disney. They approached him to do this new show, which was it was a whole new channel called Playhouse Disney, and they wanted two presenters. So there was Big Dave and Little Alex, as we were, and he put me forward. And so I've got a big thank you to him recommending me. Went along, got the job, and then they took us all around the world filming for Playhouse Disney. It was incredible, a huge set. It was at Leavesden Studios. before, to give you an idea, it's one of the big film studios in London. We had to move from there after our first time of filming because Harry Potter came in. I mean, it's
Wow,
massive. There
huge,
were
yeah.
props from Star Wars, like vehicles from Star Wars that had been filmed there, but they were made of polystyrene, but they looked like big metal vehicles. So it was all sorts of stuff there. And we had a huge house, this Playhouse Disney. So you would look at it, they call it the fourth wall, don't they, darling, television? No fourth wall, which, like if you were in a theatre, that would be where the audience is sitting. So that's where the cameras are. There would be a door coming to a big entrance area, and then there'd be a bedroom, an attic, a bathroom with a great big fish tank in the bath. And then you'd get down from there via a slide in a tree trunk back down into the living room area. And so that was
That's
Playhouse
amazing.
Disney that was born, and it went around the world.
Wow, what a job.
I know, it's amazing. It went around the world, but not with Dave and me. They would have their own presenters.
Right.
So they once did a montage of the opening song, Come and Meet Your Friends at Playhouse Disney. That's probably copywritten now. You're going to have to bleep that bit out. But they would have a Spanish version of us, a German version of us, an American version of us. And
Wow, that's
it was
so good.
hilarious.
And so you were living in London still? You still had your
Yeah.
label. So so you're really doing, I mean, absolutely really doing it. And then that gradually then I know, did you work with Auction TV? Did I see that?
Oh, yeah, I did. So Playhouse Disney was brilliant. We'd do 2 weeks intensive filming, but then there'd be nothing for ages, but it would be playing on a loop constantly on telly. So I'm like, what else am I going to do? I'm not going back to theatre. I'm liking this telly malarkey. And then I saw an audition for this auction channel called Bid Up TV, which was new. Went along, got the job. It's just around the corner from where I was living as well. I was living in West London. And oh my God, what a learning experience in terms of telly.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Pen, got to sell it.
Yeah.
You've got to keep going. We haven't sold enough. So you've got to keep going. There's only so much you can say about flipping pen. While you've got open talk back, director talking to the producer, talking to the floor manager, talking to the cameras, you're still going, graphics on the screen, calls coming in, we've sold however many it might be, more information coming in. Then you've got a clock because you're in an auction and time is ticking down. In terms of learning to work with open talkback, which I had on Disney, but learning to work with open talkback, continuing to talk no matter what, selling something, so seeing it for the best, even if it's like, I'm not really mad about these glasses, but I can see them from the point of view of somebody who would love them. So trying to, always look at it from that kind of positive point of view. It was an amazing time of learning.
Yeah.
I would recommend the experience.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because a few series ago we had Jackie Cablow. I don't know if you, she used to work at GMTV. She's a great author, but also she works at QVC, and so it's a similar thing. And she said it was by far the hardest, best job, and she'd been a GMTV West of England correspondent. But so I really get that because oh my God, and what an experience for you.
It's seen, isn't it, as like, oh, you did shopping telly.
Yeah.
I mean, it does have that.
No, but it's hard.
But do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I went recently I did a little thing at a school, and I wrote out the number 1, 2, and 3, and I got them to hold it in the, in the audience, the kids to hold this 1, 2, and 3. So they were representing cameras 1, 2, and 3. And then I got somebody to come up on stage, and I asked them to talk about a pen, but I'm shouting, go to camera 2, and now camera 1. Go to camera 1. Don't forget, you've got to say the prices or whatever it might be, and just got them to keep talking. And of course, every time I talk, they're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, keep going. You've got to keep going. And it was just, what a laugh.
Oh,
really good experience.
Well, it goes to show as well, because
that work.
Oh my God, but all of this, it's funny, isn't it, how it has all come together for what you do today as well.
Yeah.
That is the fun, that's what I love. Going back to that career day with that lady, and I take it was a lady, but it was all, you listened, and it's taking you to exactly where you're meant to be. And this is the beauty. Alex Lovell, you're living proof. So so I know you then moved into, I mean, and Brain Teaser, sorry, I'm going from one thing to another. Brain Teaser was huge. And also, I didn't realise this, that you were doing the voiceover on Deal or No Deal.
Yeah, they used to have a quiz for a while. So I was just the voiceover on that. That went into the breaks and stuff. But it was because I was in the same building. I was doing Brain Teaser, then Deal or No Deal came in. It was at the Paintworks in Bristol, and then there was another show that was called Fool Around with My, and it was either boyfriend or girlfriend, and it was one of the early. It was like the kind of time that they were starting to do, or had been doing Big Brother for a little while. So these reality shows were in their infancy. And it was on like T4 and E4, Channel 4, whatever. And so there was a voiceover to that. So I'm in the voiceover booth. So it was natural just to do one for Deal or No Deal while I was there. Then go back at the weekends and do a bit of shopping telly, and then come back and do Brain Teasers. So this was starting to build up a little world of telly, which is my preference.
So were you still based in London at this stage?
Yeah.
Even though you were also working in Bristol, but you were still based in London. And so obviously then it was in 2005, that's when you went to news. But before we go into that, you said it, because I found this really interesting on your notes. You talked about a therapist. Now that was in your late 20s who gave you some home truths. And I'm quite fascinated to ask you about that, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. That was quite pivotal. So I just started actually on Brain Teaser, so it was probably around the turn of the millennium, and I went, I can't even remember. I was trying all sorts of things like craniosacral therapy and Reiki and all these kind of things. Living in West London, I'm like, oh yeah, it's really cool. And I went in to see this guy one day, and we did a very powerful kind of meditation. And he said, think of all the things you don't like about yourself, and picture them on a representation in your mind's eye of you. So there's a me made up of all the things I don't like. And we really went into this and talked about it. And then he asked for this image of me to come over and sit on my lap, and for me to hug her and love her. And obviously you get the metaphor. Oh, tears rolling down my face, there's snot everywhere. Like, it was really powerful. And at the end of it, he said to me, that was so amazing. You were so interesting and dynamic, and the truth of you that came out in that moment was amazing. Instead of just, otherwise you're quite boring.
Well, I mean, but again, you don't have to. I mean, how can you be boring what you're doing? But also, I kind of understand this. So, because anyone listening to this, so to the listener listening, like up until now, so there you were, like you're working at Brain Teaser. You've been really brave. You'd followed your heart. You had a really awful experience of grief, but you carried on, and you'd kind of been following your heart all the way through. So somebody listening might think, well, what wouldn't you like about yourself? So what would you have said you didn't like about yourself at that stage, if you don't mind me asking?
I think it's all the things that you have, self-doubt, trying to be a better person, the dark, I don't know, it's just everything that, when the lights go out, that you worry about 3 o'clock in the morning. It's, the not good enough, but then wanting to be ambitious, but then ambition is, seeing as a dirty word. I was never ambitious like that. I was always, excitedly ambitious. I don't know, just demons.
Yeah.
But what he was saying really was that as a presenter and in life, was I presenting who I wanted to be? The good girl from Harrogate, was I actually, if I wanted to actually use a swear word, I mean, this is a really trite example, but was I not? Because I'm not being true to myself. I'm being right and proper.
Yeah.
And actually what he was saying was, come on, let's have a bit of who's in there.
Yeah, but Alex, isn't this just like what the acting school was saying? It was like, wasn't it? Wasn't it? It was, because it was like, and I think
truth.
It's truth.
That's what shopping telly does as well.
Yes.
Like any of this flim flam, You've just got to keep going and find your truth. And I think that was quite a turning point. The next day I went on air, and I was not trying to be a presenter. I was a lot more organic, a little bit risky, obviously never anything that's going to get me sacked, but just a bit more me. We had the most amazing interaction. It was a live program. There was no title or anything because we took live calls, and it was one of our most successful programs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that kind of worked. And then in shopping telly, I remember I had a truthful moment where I would freeze. We all freeze. You get taken on stage, for example, when you're younger. You go and sit down and you think, I've no idea what I just said. What did I say when I was up there? Because you've gone into a blind panic. And you'd get that on shopping telly. You'd have these moments where something would go wrong and you'd go, what's the get out that we all use? Oh, let's move on quickly. One of those. And it's like, that's what we say when we can't think of anything else to say.
Yeah.
As opposed to going, let's actually just enjoy that.
Yeah.
Slightly crazy moment. And I remember I tried it. We were selling these prints, and there were only 3 of them left. And one of them was on the set, on the desk. And so I'm trying to sell it, and it's not selling. And so I said something and slammed my hands on the desk. And the picture, this limited one of 3, dislodged off its stand and slid and smashed all over the floor. And a quick thinking cameraman got a shot of it all smashed on the floor, and then came back to me. And I thought, don't panic, stay in the moment. And I said, and now there's only 2. It's even more limited. And suddenly I thought, actually, I really enjoyed that slight chaotic moment, and I didn't lose my mind. And in telly now, in news, lives go down, packages don't make. You trip over your words. I try not to shy away from any of those. And when I'm working with some of the up and coming presenters, of which we have just such a plethora of talent, all I'm trying to do is remind them to be themselves. Trust you. Because when you start improvising and talking about something off the back of a package, if you then are yourself, which you have to be because you're not scripted in those moments. So, I thought that was a great idea. And it was really interesting that they did that. And then you go back to the auto cue and start reading again as a presenter. It's pretty obvious that you've gone back into presenter mode. So it's breaking that down and being yourself all the time. So that's what I try and
that's brilliant though. But how amazing. But also, again, I think, and again, this is what we try and do here on the next chapter, is if you are true to yourself, whatever that is, you can't go wrong, really. It might not be that everybody likes it or everybody else agrees or anything like that, but you yourself, you can't argue with the truth for you. You just can't, and nobody can. And if we all live a bit like that, then you stop blaming, and I just think it makes the world a better place. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And it's funny, isn't it? When you see these reality shows, it's quite often the person who is most at peace with who they are, not the most famous or the most popular you'd think going in. It's the person who's just really raw and real.
Yeah.
And we all do it. We all put on a front. I'm a people pleaser. I grew up, I wanted my dad to be very pleased with me, and that's ingrained probably a bit more than I would like. But and I find it hard when people don't like my real. That's always been a bit of a battle for me.
But that also is natural. I mean, that is natural. We do all want to feel loved, and it's never easy, but you don't let it stop being you. So that's it. And so that's well, thank you, Alex. But I still think it's fascinating about that drama school as well, because it's like it's the lesson that's coming through all the time, isn't it? So in 2005, this is when you then went to Points West.
Yes.
So going into news must have felt different.
Yeah, really different. So I had an audition. I saw that they were advertising. I thought, well, I'll never get it, but it might be a way, into working with them and doing. They did an outdoory kind of program. Well, not outdoory, but kind of investigative. But it was quite. It changed over the years. Anyway, I never thought I'd get it, and then they asked me back for a second audition. I was floored. Like, what? Anyway, so I got it. I got it on a 3-month trial period. So, they weren't sure. And I wanted to do it. I still have brain teaser going on as well. And they overlapped for a while. But then 18 and a half years later, I was still there.
Yeah.
So, and it was amazing. It was a massive learning curve because suddenly I hadn't gone to study journalism. But then not everybody had. Some people had come through newspapers, some people had done the journalism course, but I'm working for the BBC. It's a world-renowned corporation. I mean, if you're going to learn it, what a great place to learn it, and in the job. So suddenly I'm learning in the job. I did apologize for myself internally for a few years, that feeling of coming at it from the wrong direction. You're not a proper journalist. I remember even there was once a kind of a journalistic group that was brought together, and somebody said, why do you think you should have this job when you've taken it off someone who has studied journalism?
What? Yeah.
And I didn't know what to say. And it was actually Chris Vasher, who was the co-presenter when I first joined, who stepped in and said, Alex, actually, if I may. And he stepped in and
Well, you had a life
that
experience.
person.
Yeah, quite right. Or well done him as well. But have you, how did you overcome that when you had that? Because you talked earlier about with the doubt. How did you overcome that feeling?
I think I don't know if I think I just learned to make peace with it.
Yeah.
In terms of, well, do you know what? I can't change my story and my journey to here. But actually, as you've picked up on, my journey to here is where I'm meant to be in my mind.
Yeah.
I like that something's different every day. That feeds the inner, curiosity and energy that I have. I love working with and meeting all these people who've got incredible stories. I love bringing people things that are immediate and they need to know about, but also having the fun at the end of the program that's different from the national news. It's the fun bit and the finally and the gorgeous bits that you're so good at and just embrace. So it's absolutely where I'm meant to be, in an amalgamation of all the things. I just didn't come at it.
Yeah.
So when people say to me, oh, my son or daughter wants to get into journalism, what would be your recommendation? I'm just like, don't do it the way I did. Because it was tough and it was a bit like that, but I made peace with it and I bring what I bring.
Yeah, you do. But also, as I said at the beginning, I saw you do that interview with Rishi Sunak, and also because again, and I know I keep repeating the same thing about the importance of being yourself, but I think, and we see it today in a lot of media and journalists, and I see this with friends, because they're watching this big sort of, and the national and the journalists, and it's a very, and it's getting exclusive, and it's almost like being the journalist. But actually, when you interviewed Rishi Sunak, and it was right, I mean, all prime ministers were important, but that was right in the peak. There was so much going on in the country. It's like, it's incredible what you're doing. You're in this, how you just came in and you just did it. But so you did it, not as a journalist, look at how important I am. It was more about, you could put you were very much in the shoes of the viewer and asking the questions you want to ask as a real person. And I think that's the essence, because the person watching at home wants to know those questions. Sometimes they don't need to know how important the journalist is. They just need to know what's going to happen to them and their children.
Yeah.
And you do that.
Oh, I try. I'm still learning, but and also I always review. I'm always watching back, not all the time, but periodically, 'cause it just can get better. But it's funny. I'm a bit of an over-researcher. Seb will tell you this. He'll go in with, a really clear idea of what he wants. I've got 3 million questions. But when I go in, or when I know I've got an interview coming, the first thing I do is write down all my initial questions, shooting from the hip with what I just know of being alive in this world. So those are probably the questions that most people at home would want to ask. Then I do a load of research. So now I'm backed up with a bit of extra information. 9 times out of 10, I go straight back to those original questions, just with a bit of context.
Yeah.
Because that's our job, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
Well, I know you might say that, but people at home might be thinking, well, I don't feel like that, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, but you do need that context. You absolutely do need that
Sometimes we
context.
get it wrong. It's live telly, but that's where we come at it from.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you, so obviously you were at Points West, and note how I'm not dwelling too long on Points West. I have to, but yeah, I love Points West. I have to tell you a story. I have to tell you this. I don't think I've ever told you this. So when that job came up, your job, I was working at the BBC, funny enough, in Cambridge at Look East. And I was about to, it was around the time I was about to get married to Robert Murphy. And I wanted to come back to Bristol and be near Robert Murphy and just come back to Bristol. And so that job came up. And it's funny, isn't it, how things are, I mean, anyway, I applied for that job. But wait for this. I got this email back saying, thank you for your application, Barker Barker. Alex, I didn't even get my name right on the application. I don't know how it, and so from that, I don't know what happened, but I think this was fake. It was all fake. I mean, I'm not saying
Barker Barker.
Yeah.
Did I stop you getting together earlier with? I'm
No,
really
because
sorry.
let's face it, I wouldn't have got the job because you were much better than I was. Yeah, absolutely, and there was many other people, but so I didn't get it. And at Look East, everyone just called me Barker Barker from then on, and it was like I didn't even get an interview. No wonder, because she can't even get her name right. However, then the job came up at ITV West Country of life correspondent, which to this day we still not 100% sure what that is, but it was great. Which meant I came back, so I was with Rob back in ITV West Country, and then with all the lovely people, as you know, and I'm not saying the people in Points West aren't lovely, but I've got some of my bestest friends in the entire world, all at ITV West Country, having a slot called Ask Ellie. So that's why I'm talking about myself here, Alex.
No, I love that.
But then
to bring back Ask Ellie.
oh yeah, I'd love that. But then I remember one day I saw you in Clifton Village. It was many years later, and you were walking. I was like, she does look really, because you sort of was like, wow, this lady that got it. Who was the person that got it? It was this lady from Brain Teaser, and of course she should get it. And I was like, well, I think one day we might be friends. I don't know why I thought that. And remember I had my nephews in the car, and I was like, that's the lady that presents on Points West. And then you're here and it's all worked out right.
It feels so right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I love that.
Barker,
That's so you as well, that you wouldn't sit in the car and go, she took my job.
No.
But that's so you, that you would sit in the car and go, oh, I think one day we'll be friends.
I did.
That's why I love you.
Oh, bless you. Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, Alex, there was something going. I didn't even get my name right. I mean, I had a long way to go. I had a lot to learn. But the job, today, and this goes back to the work ethic, and I think it's hard, and I say this to you and Seb all the time, that it's a tough job. I mean, as in it's a brilliant job, but to go and do, because we do, again, for the listener, if they don't know, we do 2 versions of the show. So it's for Bristol and Somerset and Gloucestershire, Wiltshire, and then also for Devon and Cornwall. And then you're doing those late shifts, which sometimes are really late. Yeah. And then you're coming in and you're constantly performing, and it's outward. And how you and Seb do it, I always say it to you, I do admire it, because I personally, I don't think I could have done it anyway. It's very well, I think to have that stamina at that time of day so consistently and do it so well, what you do, but you can see, understanding now that you've got such a work ethic of it, of doing those children's shows 3 times a day, but not many people can do it, Alex.
Well, I mean, I think it's funny in the interview, because I used to do, because I was doing 1 show a day at Points West, they said, how do you feel about the fact that you're going to be doing more? And I said, actually, it's my favorite part of the day. When I'm in the studio, I'm in my happy place, so that's where I want to be. But it does take a performance energy. You've got to be on top of the stories. We have a next day meeting, don't we?
Yes, we do.
What's coming up the next day. Very quickly, I found I couldn't go to that, because my brain was so addled. It's difficult enough thinking about what's happening today, trying to get my head around what I'm going to be doing tomorrow as well.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it. So I don't go to that.
No, well, I can understand that, because you do. It is, and again, what we were talking about earlier, it's all about being very sort of present and kind of in the moment as such. And so for you, when you made that decision to come over, that must be it was a big decision, wasn't it?
Do you know, it was a bit like acting, which is just, it was no decision. it was absolutely the right thing to do. So during COVID and everything, Points West decided BBC rather, decided across all their regions, about 14 regions, that they wanted to go down to one presenter instead of two, like we've got at ITV. And so a lot of the presenters had to interview again against the people who were their colleagues. And so it was really hard. And David Garmston, who's still the main presenter there, my lovely friend, we had a really good talk about it. And we said that neither of us wanted to compete and go through the stress of that. Why don't we share it? So we did. We shared it. We literally shared one job 50-50 in every way, which was great. And for, a year and a bit, I'm living my best life. I'm working 2 days one week, 3 days the next week. I'm reveling in all my new hobbies that I'm doing. But it was too early to retire. Semi-retire, not retire, semi-retire. So I was 50 and I was like, I've still got a lot more in me yet. Seb had gone over to ITV, who was, one of my very best friends. And then he said that Kylie was going and they advertised the job. And I thought, I can't believe this. This is amazing. This is what I want to do. I want to be back on all the time. And there's a chance I might get to be on with my best friend.
Yeah.
But what if I go for it and don't get it? And then I'm just going to feel 50 and rejected,
Yeah.
The BBC will know that ITV don't want me. So it was a risk.
Yeah, it was.
For it. And thank God I got it.
And also because, again, to the listener, and if somebody is in our area and sees you, you and Seb are best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's lovely. You're like proper best friends, as in you chat all the time. You always were.
Like brother and sister, aren't we?
Yes, you are.
Literally like a brother and sister.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky. I love being on with him.
Yeah.
So it couldn't feel more dreamy. It's funny, when I first came over to ITV, I remember one of our colleagues in Anglia, said, because I was like, I love it so much. And they said, I kept thinking, when am I going to find the catch? When's the catch? And I haven't found it. And they've been there for years. I've now been there 2 and a bit years. I still can't find the catch.
Love that.
I adore it. I adore it. I loved being at Points West. It was brilliant. 18 and a half years, wonderful friends, incredible experience and growth. I'm working for the BBC.
Yeah.
I am delirious now in the job I'm in.
Yeah, I love that, Alex. And I feel the same about it. And
Yeah.
and I also and lots of people who work there do. And I think, of course, we have ups and downs. No, we're not saying it's like Mary Poppins land, but also I think, again, this all goes back to this thing about following your heart. I do, because then you work with like-minded, you're with your people. It doesn't matter if it's not television, it might be accountancy, it might be, I'm saying accountancy, teaching, whatever it may be. But when you find, and I feel like our newsroom particularly, it's a very, and people will say about newsroom and TV and, it's difficult and this, and it's not. I mean, there are long hours, or you particularly do, but it's a family, and it's warm, and it's like you and Seb being like a brother and sister. You're absolutely right. But it does exist, and I think that you can think places don't exist, but they do in every industry. I think it does exist. As
I said, if you feel like you're on holiday, or that you're not working, you've aced out. There's something about that, isn't it?
You'll never work a day in your life, or whatever it is.
Yeah, you'll never work another day.
Yeah, and it is true.
We've got that. And it is, I mean, it is a great world to work in. It's funny, people often say, so do you go in like just before the news? What do you do all day? That's quite often what people wonder, isn't it?
Yeah, when you're researching and you're right, and it just is, especially with the 2 shows, it is on that shift, what you do, from the minute you walk in, it is constant. Yeah,
and there's always other projects going on as well.
Yeah. And just, because I'm going to move it, and I'm really conscious of your time, but I do want to touch on it, because in all of it, I mean, obviously there are always the ups, because you have, I didn't realize it as well, to the extent, and I know you're doing work around this, and you do lots of charity works, but you have been affected. I'm not going to call it stalking, but I'm going to say you have had, I mean, that is a downside, but you have had, shall we say, unwanted attention in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a lot of learning there. I find that still now, when you talk about stalking, people, do you know that on average, victims, it takes up to 100 incidents before they report it. And it's because low level, it's not low level when it's frightening, but it's the moments where you're being bombarded with things that can be explained away. Text messages, flowers on their own, they don't sound like much, but when it's just coming all the time, and it doesn't have to be romantic, it can be that somebody's been wronged or someone's a client, and they don't like something, or it can be a complete stranger. There are lots of different forms of stalking, and we let it go for too long, and stalking classically can escalate, and so many victims wait until it's escalated to the point where it's very obvious it's stalking because they're now afraid to leave the house. And it's that fine line between when do we actually step back and say we should have called this out much earlier on, but it's that self-doubt, it's minimization, other people trying to make it okay. Stalking fatigue, like for example, if you're talking about it to somebody and they kind of get a bit bored of hearing about it, that can happen. And so places to turn, like charities. I am an ambassador for the Holly Gazzard Trust, based in Gloucester, but they're a national charity. It's amazing. You turn to these charities and talk about the things that are happening in your life, and they will say, this is stalking. You need to start keeping a diary. You need to write down how it's making you feel. As the chief executive of Holly Gazzard said to me, if you imagine a scary movie, it's not when the monster jumps out, it's between that. That's the world that you live in when you're being stalked. It's in the moments between the scary stuff, the messages, somebody turning up, not knowing, this constant psychological fear that's going on. And it's not acceptable.
No, it's not. And did you have particular incidents, or has it been something that's come and gone? You know, because I know obviously you have a lot of attention, but are there key ones that, without sort of going into the details, but that stick out for you?
Yeah, when I was working on Brain Teaser, there was somebody who was getting in touch with me a lot, and then they didn't live in Bristol, but they started coming down to Bristol, and that really started to escalate to the point where I actually went to bed like with my like with the tracksuit on, so I was just getting to the point where I was convinced that they were going to turn up.
Oh,
You know, that kind of literally afraid that they're going to be outside the bedroom window kind of thing. And without going into it, that went to court and was harassment. They pleaded guilty to harassment. And then a few years later, a complete stranger started writing to me, and this was a stalking case that we did cover at Points West as well, and I think it was in the press. But this person was writing to me. It's quite sexual letters. And then they turned from that after years. Suddenly it just said, I've made a New Year's resolution. I'm going to have sex with you this year, and make no mistake, if you don't comply, I'm going to rape you.
Oh my God.
Suddenly, yeah. And this had gone from very sexual, kind of pornographic writing to actual threat. And then things like letters saying I was walking down the road today. I was close enough to smell your hair. It's like, oh my God, I'm signing off your soon-to-be rapist. And
oh no, Alex.
awful. So I wasn't allowed to go out from work on my own. And it went on for years. And then eventually, just by the most incredible set of events, together with Avon and Somerset Police, he was caught, pleaded guilty, and was jailed for stalking.
Did you, when he was saying that he could smell your hair, did you know who it was?
No.
So you just didn't know?
When you don't know who it was, it becomes everybody.
Yes,
and
it does.
I wasn't, thinking it's everybody, but you're like, who is?
Yeah, because also there's a fine line, isn't there? Because and obviously we do lots of stories. We see a side of a life a lot, especially my husband Rob, who does a lot of crime, and it's very there's a fine line, isn't there? Because you can listen like, oh, well, clearly when you start getting letters or something like that, you can clearly see, and we were talking about empathy before, you can think, oh, they're not right, or there's something wrong. And it's can be very much about them. But actually, when is it? And I've read once, and I think this is such a good quote, that, sometimes empathy without sort of boundaries is self-destruct, because actually you end up, you were losing your freedom. You were losing your freedom, and you, like you said, like what the charities say, it's like the constant unease and your quality of life. So it's abuse, really, isn't it? It's abuse.
Yeah, it is, but it's so hard to quantify when it's not you. That's why we self-doubt and let it escalate until the point where we are in panic mode and are starting to fear for our lives. That's why it takes this escalation. So I just want to kind of get in there and say, if you're not sure what it is, with the many forms it takes, there's a mnemonic that most of the police and charities use, which is the word for, and that stands for behavior that is fixated, obsessive, unwanted, and repeated. And if it fits into that, if someone is fixated on you, they're obsessed with you, they know it's unwanted and it's being repeated, you are in stalking territory, or this could turn into stalking territory, or you're just being stalked and you've got to start making a note, telling someone, reaching out, before your life becomes completely disabled by it.
And presumably it can happen with people as well, like that's the thing.
Yeah, the most common form is ex-partner, but there can be others. There can be intimacy seeker, somebody who's not quite getting it right and reading the signals. There could be somebody who's very angry at the world, at you, all different scenarios, or there can be a complete stranger, and that's and it should be taken seriously, because although not all stalking can end in the worst case scenarios that we do see, like Holly Gazzard, in the homicide timeline, it was a piece of work that was done by an amazing woman called Jane Monckton Smith in Gloucester, but it's renowned across the UK and probably the world. She talks about the homicide timeline, and it goes up the point before homicide. Pretty much that's where stalking sits. So not all stalking ends in homicide, but most homicide has an element of stalking to it. So you've just got to take it seriously.
Yeah, you do. And how do you feel now? Do you feel yourself, do you feel okay about it? I imagine it sort of still affects you in some way.
No, I feel completely okay, which is why I want to work on it, because I'm still seeing people not recognize it or minimizing it and saying, oh, they mean it for the best. It's probably just a natter, or they'll probably go away and just get bored, or just block them. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
So I just want to reach out to all these things. So I've got closure on it. The person the harassment case, he admitted it. The stalking case, he admitted it. He went to jail. I am completely at peace with that. I'm not, now going to be all, don't talk to her, she'll say you're a stalker, which is something I fear people might think. But it's like, no, people say to me that, like a work colleague, for example, I'll bump into them in the supermarket and they might go, oh, sorry, I'm not stalking you. And they'll go, oh God, sorry. It's like, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think we have decriminalized that word a little bit.
Yeah.
We do use it in a very loose way. We all do it. But I'm not going to be super sensitive. But at the same time, I am going to,
Yeah, I
help
think,
people. And when they come to me and say, this has happened, and I'm like, oh my God, start making a note. Maybe nothing will happen, but you need to, don't, it's okay to be doubting yourself, but don't.
Yeah, I think you're right about the minimization, which I think and other people do it as well in the kindest possible way. But it's okay, it's fine, it doesn't really matter. But actually, if it's having an effect, it's having an effect. And I didn't realize that, because you're involved with you do a lot of charity work. So is it Blood Brothers? No, I want to say Blood Brothers. It's not. We did that on the show.
Blood bikes, yeah.
Blood bikes.
I had a small midlife crisis when I was 50 and learned to ride a serious motorbike. And I I was approached by the blood bikes in the West Country to say, would you be a patron? So I'm very proud to be a patron of blood bikes. They get up in every weather, in the night, during COVID. They're out there transporting blood, plasma, milk, samples, COVID tests when it was COVID. They're out there when we're tucked to sleep, tucked up in our beds. Amazing people.
Yeah, there are real life angels in the world. There really are. There are. So for your to be continued, Alex, what would you like to do next?
I am always still developing. So I'm working out still who I am and what I'm doing. But I'm finding that actually, instead of feeling like, I've got so much work and the weekend's really precious, actually, I realize I thrive on that. So at the moment, I'm absolutely embracing busyness, but I'm also embracing the creativity. It keeps me completely sane. So I've got my outlet, I've got my dog, I've got my outlet, like gardening, things like that. So if life continues and I carry on doing those things for the rest of my life, I'm a very happy bunny.
Yeah. But also, Alex, I know, and I apologise to the listener to keep saying the same thing, but this is the whole point, isn't it? Following your heart, you did it. And then that's because you don't want to have it all worked out at 20 necessarily. It's all part.
I've never had it worked out. I've never had a plan.
No, but here you are. And like you say, to be, to be in this position where you want your life to just keep continuing, that's a great position to be. I mean, it's the position.
Sometimes people might think, well, what's your ambition, what's your what next?
Yeah,
actually my life is so great. I have amazing friends. I've a house I love. I've got my pets. I've got my fantastic husband, bless him, who puts up with me, and I've got this work that I adore. I want more of this. I'm tasting a very delicious, lovely, yummy, healthy life, and I really want more of it.
Yeah, I love that. Alex, I love that. And you're a great gardener. We've seen the videos. And I should just say to listener, Alex has is making all of the ITV West Country family be growers of all different sunflowers, no matter how much we aren't, which I'm not. But I'm gonna get better. She's inspiring us. So for your acknowledgements, Alex, who are the people you'd like to thank who have helped you along the way?
That's a really lovely thing to do, isn't it? It's like an attitude of gratitude, which I love. I mean, inevitably, definitely my family, my parents just have always just let me go and do whatever I need to do with unconditional love. So anybody in my life that's given me that has been amazing. And the people that took chances on me as well, the people who recommended me, like Dave Benson Phillips did, like Beeb did, like ITV have done. And then I've got some amazing friends who have propped me up, but in really truthful ways. Like, for example, my gorgeous friend Sharon, she is brutal and so supportive. I love her. The strength she gave me, especially during the stalking time, was epic. Also, I've got a beautiful friend called Angela, very, very similar as well. She'll be very truthful with me, and I need that, and she'll keep me grounded, but also big me up. Seb as well. He was like, come over to ITV, and I was like, yeah. And then Gavin, my husband, he is just lets me go la 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 through life, and he's just there going, all right, we'll carry on. Still here,
Oh, but also you said the other day, it was your mum said, oh, everyone needs a Gav, but how he just, it's lovely to see, and it's not, and and you're different, aren't you, and it's lovely, and I should just say, I mean, I get back to me again, but I also obviously work with Seb, and I am a big fan of both of us, and I think if you work on live TV, you really get to know someone very quickly, as in you get a feel of somebody. And it's totally different. You'll never experience that aside to someone. And like with you and Seb, you just feel in such safe hands, and that's a love. And you feel you give us our space as well. On this, both of you do, and I think that's very special. It's quite rare. I think it's quite rare, actually.
That's nice.
Yeah, it is.
Also say to all the viewers that are so nice.
Yeah, they are.
They're so lovely.
Yeah.
But actually, how lucky are we when you go out and people are like, oh, I feel like I know you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the loveliest thing you could say, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So what would you say is the biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome? And how did you overcome it?
Probably the biggest hurdle was um, when I was 21 with Claire, losing my best friend, because nothing made sense in life. I was quite religious for that as well. Not massively, but I grew up going to church and I was like, what's that all about? How can it just suddenly be nothing? Um, you know, what's the point? It made me question absolutely everything in my life. And it was a real reality check from a girl who'd been living in a gorgeous bubble to suddenly be in London and be faced with something that was just came out of nowhere. I'd say I grew up a lot then. I think that was probably,
Mm,
but I'm
mm,
lucky I haven't had huge adversity. I've lost my dad. He was very ill. He had cancer. These are all awful things. That's life. We go through these, and there are times when things really hurt. So, we've all had adversity. The stalking time was a really hard time. But I also learned a lot, and I can now share a lot from that. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And it's always about learning, seeing the lesson you learn in these trickier times. If someone is listening to this, Alex, and especially what you said earlier about when you were applying for the ITV job, and I think that was really, yeah, it's so true that it's so. If someone's listening to this and thinking, do you know, I'm listening to Alex, and that sounds great. Do you know what? But I don't feel like that about my life, and I'd like to feel like that about my life. But whatever it is, and it is particularly, it could be a job or a type of job they'd like to go for, or setting up or not even setting up an own business, but just experimenting. But they think, God, but it's just too late for me. What's the point? It's just too late. And you can think that in your 20s as much as you can think that in your 30s. I think it's too late is something we tell ourselves all. I see that even in lovely young people or lovely older people. We say, oh, we can't. It's too late now. It's too late for me. What would you say to a person who's listening who thinks, I can't really go for that thing that I really, really want because it's too late for me? What would you say to them?
So I would lean into that. If you feel there should be more to your life, then that means that there is still more. There's more energy in you to go and explore it. I don't think change comes very often without some discomfort, so you've got to kind of lean into that as well. But for me, I think, feed that little passion. I think what stops us is we feel we have to go, we see somebody who's doing what we want to do, and you feel you've got to go from where you are now to that. I don't know how to get there. Well, just try it. Do it as a hobby. Try something on the side. Talk to people who are doing it. Start to, when people say about manifestation, I think it's because it's like praying. It focuses the mind, and then it does draw things to you because you're looking out for them, in the same way that if you were looking out for a pair of red shoes to buy, you suddenly start noticing red shoes. It naturally puts you on that path. So I think you've got to accept there might be some discomfort, take solace in the fact that this discomfort in you is a great thing, because it means you've got the energy and you want to explore the world. And as I say to my mum, one go at this life, so you may as well make it the best goddamn adventure that you can have, because sadly it can be over in a blip. So
Such
go
good
for it.
advice.
Things will fall into place.
As you have experience of how it can be over so quickly as well. But I totally agree. And also, isn't it having as well something there? There has to being brave enough allow, because I think if you can think it, if you can see it, you can be it, and if you can think it, that's your whisper. The thinking of it is the whisper. So I think there is something in you that does think you can do it because you're whispering it. And it's almost having that brave, it's really brave to just have a dare to believe, just to believe that it's going to be okay. Or if it's not right this time, it was like what you did with the ITV, at least you did it and you paid off. But you could have easily listened to the negative voice of like, oh, it was a risk, isn't it? Especially if you're feeling a bit flat in any sense of, and whatever, it just feeds into that. But it's allowing yourself to do it anyway.
Well, we're so tied up in financial constraints. Our children, we've got to bring in regular income, we've got debts, these are all the things that just put a dampener on things we really want to explore. And I get that. And that is disabling in itself, isn't it? So I think I always say fortune favors the brave, but it does take discomfort to get there.
Love that, Alex. I love that. I love that. And so finally, what a brilliant way to wrap up. Finally, as you know, my next chapter dream is to write books which somebody can read around a swim, like on holiday, and they just can't put it down for a day. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, something, when you're just so escaped in it and then you talk to your husband or whatever about it at night. And I would love to be able to do that. What is the book that you feel like that about, or one book that you feel like that about, that you just wouldn't be able to put down on holiday?
I think it's funny, nearly every book I've got in my house is to do with one of my hobbies. So it's probably at the moment to do with gardening. I would take a gardening book on holiday and then put little post-it notes in and arrows to what I now can't do without. However, when I do go on holiday, I do want to sometimes switch off. So I think it's going to be your books that I'm going to take with me.
Listen, I won't be testing you. I won't. You have to say that.
I can't wait for the next one to come out, all set in the newsroom.
Oh yeah, we've got it. It's all there. But I think you're right, isn't it? It's just something when you just love it, and again, you just love it, and then you don't want to put it down, and that's your sign. That's the sign of where you're supposed to be. Well, Alex, you've been here with me and our lovely Next Chapter listener. You are truly amazing. I was so looking forward to this. It didn't disappoint. Thank you for following your heart and us being here together, and thank you for being such a wonderful guest on the Next Chapter.
I've loved it. Thank you so much, Ellie.
You gorgeous person.